And so now, at the same time that he's setting that up, he's going to go ahead and try and distract Sonkie from the fact that he has a new expo by hitting his. This is pretty sound strategy. This isn't anything new. If you're going for if you're trying to set up your own expansion, then you're not going to be able to. Then you don't want your opponent to be looking for it. You want them to be having to defend their stuff, preferably in a hit and run kind of manner. Because if you're setting up an expansion, you're obviously at an economic disadvantage until the expansion gets up. So you don't really want to be fighting them full on, because they'll probably have more food in terms of units and probably more gold. And you see a Pit Lord, not quite a surround here, but it doesn't really matter because it dies anyway. And Axe, almost sort of foolishly, led them right to his expansion. But like I said, he just cancels both those buildings very quickly. And Sonkie, for some reason, decides that Acolyte doesn't need to die. Oh, he decides because there's a statue right there. That's probably a more pressing issue. And maybe he goes back in and kills the Acolyte here. Yeah. So we'll see that Axe actually has a Frostworm up, which is, Frostworms, everybody's complaining about them is, it's tough to get to them, you have to tech too much, they're too expensive. But really, once you get a couple Frostworms, there's really nothing your opponent can do. I mean, you're going to see in a second here, when Axe goes up to fight against Sonkie, that a Frostworm can go down to Rifleman and a Bolt really, really quickly. But if you get maybe 2-3 Frostworms, there's really not all that much your opponent can do. Because if he's trying to focus fire that 1350 HP while your ground army is ripping up his Riflemen, he's pretty much screwed. So yeah, they're tough to get to, but I mean, you've seen this game. Sonkie put a fair amount of pressure onto Axslav, and just using ghouls and the Crypt Lord beetles, he was able to pretty much fend him off just by, hitting him a bit, using the beetles, focus firing with the fiends, trying to burrow, keep him from killing too much of his stuff. He's actually able to delay him long enough that he gets a couple worms, and we're going to see this focus fire here with that bolt, and yeah, there it is. So we'll turn it over to Ryder again for more battle information.
Well, whenever you go into a battle, if you're the undead, you really want to be looking at getting more units here. You want to be focusing them down quickly with the fiends, as they have pretty good focus fire, and using your AoE just generally tear apart the human. And that's what the Pit Lord and Impale do pretty well. Also, whenever you focus fire is, you want to be coiling that and just backing it back out. And as you can see, Axslav, he's pretty good at a combination of these things. And while he doesn't necessarily win this battle here, he manages to keep himself in it. And undead late game is deadly, as we all know, right, Wicked?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, nothing better than undead late game than maybe Night Elf late game, and maybe Orc late game. But other than that, nothing. So, so we've got, just post-battle stuff, buying another TP on the Crypt Lord to keep it alive. I think at this point he has retrained to Impale, because we saw it in that last battle. You'll see Axslav is once again going at it, trying to get up that expansion, because he figures, we came off even in that battle. That means that I've made up for the fact that I had to cancel my last expo, so maybe it's time to put up another expo. And he also figures, maybe at this time Sonkie has to be back in his base healing, and, it's just really, it's all about timing and what you think your opponent's doing at the time. If you think you're going to be able to expand, go ahead and do it. And Axslav actually doesn't have to think a whole lot about this stuff, because he knows, because if you take a look, he's still got that shade trailing on that Archmage. So there's more creeping. The red creeps on Twisted Meadows are actually quite savage, because they're not all that hard to do. It's just the Troll Warlord's really good, and when he gets Bloodlusted, it makes it tougher. But if you have another hero there to creep while you have a Death Knight, even if you haven't gone, say, Crypt Lord first, if you have, say, your Lich to stand there and tank it while you just continue coiling it, it's really not hard to creep camp, and you get some really quite sweet items. So I recommend, as soon as you can do those camps, do those camps. And I realized that I did just say do.
Yeah. Alrighty then. So yeah, those red camps are really, really good items. Definitely something you want to go for. If you get, for example, the mana, the increased mana on like a TC or on a Pit Lord for this matter, it's so good. You get so many more spells out of that, and really can end up being a game-changing thing. Oh, or on a Panda. If you're Elf and you get one of those, that's just nasty. That definitely goes for the kill. So you always want to creep those out, and especially more for undead, you can creep those out earlier because you have coil and in this case beetles. So you can go for those early, and I know he didn't go for that particularly early in the game, but one of the good things about Crypt Lord is you have that option to be able to go for those kind of camps and be able to set up, expansions at maybe a place your opponent really wasn't expecting, because really, if you look at expansions, where they are right now is probably where the typical opponent will be expanding on Twisted, with the exception of Undead vs. Elf on the islands. So that's definitely an advantage to those camps.
And if you guys noticed right there, you definitely saw the advantage of getting that necropolis. Axslav was able to TP and save, his building, and in addition, because the necropolis is there, he was able to tank all that damage so that his haunted gold mine didn't actually die. He's summoning up immediately another necropolis to try and, make sure that he'll still be able to TP there. And 2 frost worms at this point is really leaning the game in Axe's advantage, because yeah, you can focus fire down, with Stormbolt on that incredible level 5 Mountain King that just, level 5 Mountain Kings, everybody knows, are just savage. And with a level 5 bolt on level 3 bolt on that Mountain King, Frostworms even can go down fairly quickly. But with 2 of them, it's a lot tougher because of all that splash. And you'll see here that Axe is just sort of cutting his losses at his expo. I believe he's going to cancel that necropolis. If he doesn't, he sucks. So that was pretty close. I'm not sure if he canceled it or if he just wasn't able to get it in time. So here we have Sonkie finally taking down that expo, but I think Axslav got a fair amount of gold out of it. Not too much, but maybe enough to make it worth his troubles. And he has his 3rd frostworm up. Like I said about frostworms being game enders, they really are. So I mean, at a certain point when you have that many frostworms, I believe I actually said in a previous audio that frostworms were the counter to everything. Frostworms counter anti-air, frostworms counter, they counter their counters. They counter micro, they counter everything. There's really nothing that stops a bunch of frostworms. And so, when you have 2 or 3, you should really be pressing your advantage. As you see, Axe here is no longer creeping. He's no longer doing anything. He's pretty much picking to go and fight. So as soon as he sees his opponent, he just goes, I'm going to beat them. So you can see what 3 frostworms here can do, and Rain of Fire and Impale, because Impale will keep your opponent's units in place while you Rain of Fire on them. It just makes it a lot easier to AoE. And you can see the Crypt Lord and the Pit Lord and all of the AoE is just completely ripping up Sonkie. His Dragonhawk Riders don't even stay alive for the most part long enough to shackle anything for any amount of time. And just more Impale, more Rain of Fire. If you saw that combo right there, that was pretty sweet on all those riflemen, that sorceress. And if the Pit Lord's almost going down, but a quick coil should be able to stop that if Axslav's quick about it. There we go. And you really see that this hero combination of Pit Lord and Crypt Lord just really rips through the entire human army. There's really nothing that it has that can stop it other than, say, Knights. But Knights would be countered, of course, by the Frostworm. So that's the end of the game. And, it's really all about the Frostworms in that game. There really wasn't anything that could be done to counter them once he had 2 or 3, in addition to all that AoE. Now, I've always thought that there are a couple units in the game that are able to function more like heroes than units. Like Orc has Raiders that can ensnare. That's sort of a more hero-esque spell. Well, Frostworms have that fat, ice AoE, and that's actually pretty sweet. That can replace... Axslav didn't get a Lich, but he didn't really need one because he already had Frost AoE in the form of his, worms. So, that's pretty much it for my part. I don't know if you have anything else to say there, T-Rider.
Really, there are a couple counters to Frostworms, at least that I can think of. But however, they're really not useful for the situation. One would be tanks, but it's really going to be hard in a situation with undead with a higher level Death Knight to effectively use tanks, and even then, because of Frostworm's vast amount of HP, it really makes them not quite as effective as they maybe would be. Just well played by Axslav. However, I think Undead vs. Human definitely favors the Undead. Human has much smaller units, and AoE kills them. I didn't exactly remember how many scrolls Sonkie used, but you always want to definitely load up on scrolls if you're going to be playing human, not so much undead. And the great thing that Axslav did with those 3 big strength heroes is it allows them to tank while his units do the damage, and he doesn't really lose very much per battle. And even if he has to TP out, he won't have lost extreme amounts of units like Sonkie did in some of those battles.
Right. Yeah. And I guess back to Frostworm counters. I guess what you could say is Dragonhawks would be probably the most legit counter that human has to Frostworms. But the problem with that is, as you saw, because Axslav favored fiends at the beginning of the game, he was able to web them and take them down fairly quickly. In addition to just Rain of Fire and other things that were that were just taking them down as quick as they could go down. So yeah, we see Axslav's strategy of sort of ghouls and fiends in the beginning to sort of do whatever he can to survive. Basically, Axslav's strategy is all about surviving until he gets destroyers and until he gets frostworms at the same time. He really wasn't going on much of an offensive early in the game. All the early game battles were fought near or in his base. So that's really what the undead wants to be in this matchup, sort of on the defensive until you can bring out the higher level units that are really going to turn the game for you, because you're not going to turn the game with fiends versus footies unless you somehow manage to kill all of them at the same time. I think, I'm not sure if T-Rider plays more human than me, but maybe he wants to give sort of a rundown on what the human should be doing in this matchup.
Well, I'm primarily a Night Elf player now, so I'm not exactly sure, but I played a little bit of human. It was actually the first race I started with, and versus undead, you really only have a couple of choices. Well, actually, there's a few more now, but you basically have the mass tower and siege strategy, which is pretty tough for undead to deal with. I've seen some pretty imbalanced replays of that. You have the regular rifle caster that Sonkie kind of did, which I really dislike. I would strongly recommend against, because if your opponent's going destroyers, I don't know. I really don't like even having that Archmage there with water elementals, because those are easily dispelled. And then there's that Knight Gyro Griffin thing, which is very tough for undead because the nuking ability isn't nearly as strong on those kinds of units, especially with staffs and a paladin. So that's pretty much it. I think Sonkie played a strong game, but overall Axslav just played better and surprised him with a better strategy.
Right. I just have one more thing to say about maybe what the human can do in this matchup. I don't fancy myself to be any great at human. I actually play random, and I'm happy if I keep myself above maybe 55%. But I do play the human versus undead matchup, and I actually played against one of our other audio commentators, a guy named Frey, who's one of the new trial guys, and he plays undead, and he was asking me to play against him as human because he was losing in that matchup. So what I did to beat him was I went I believe it was MK first, Paladin second, and then I just teched up with a lot of footmen, by the way, just a lot of defended footmen. I think I had maybe 11 footmen at my peak. And I just got 2 Griffin Aviaries and massed up Dragonhawks, and then as soon as I could get Griffins, I got Griffins because the Griffins would counter the Fiends that he would get to counter my Dragonhawks. And with Focus Fire, they take down Destroyers, pretty darn quickly, and you gotta make sure you get armor upgrades. They're really a lot less important, or a lot more important, than attack upgrades in that situation. And on the Paladin, you can also get Devotion Aura, which really adds to that armor. And in addition, if you're going with Knights, as T-Rider suggested, if you've got full armor upgrades on a Knight, plus a Paladin with a level 1 or even level 2 Devotion Aura, that's upwards of, say, 15 armor. That's going to be tough for any undead to take down. Yeah,
definitely. So, I'm pretty sure that's the end of the game, and we've pretty much summed up all the points, so I don't have anything left to say. And Wicked, anything else you'd like to say?
Nope, nothing much. It's been a lot of fun recording with you, T-Rider. Hope to do it again.
Yeah, that was a blast. So with that, I'd like to say this is T-Rider signing out.